regularly scheduled meeting of the Annapolis Planning Commission. I want to inform anybody who's listening that the kind of sequence of things has changed with the new administration. We are still meeting on Thursday nights, but if there is a meeting on the first Thursday, it will be virtual, Zoomed, and we will meet in person on the third Thursday in the City Council chambers. So, with that minor introduction, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Waldman,
I'm present.
Mr. Pline,
Present.
Ms. Butler,
Present.
Mr. Cummings,
Present.
Mr. Spakinudis,
Present.
Mr. Riley,
Present.
and Mr. Bellamy.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have 7 members present.
Thank you. It's a full house. I appreciate everybody showing up. We have an agenda tonight, and I would like you to take a look at it and see if there are any changes to it. Let's see what we got here. 1-8 meeting agenda. Let's go. Okay. The only modification I would make is that there are the minutes for December 4th and December 18th are not available, and so we can strike that. That's number D. But other than that, I think there will be, I don't suggest any changes to it. Anybody have any edits or changes to the agenda? Otherwise, can we hear a motion to approve?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve.
So moved.
Mr. Cummings,
Second.
seconded by Riley. All in favor of this agenda, say aye.
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 Any nays? No, okay. So we can move right into our administrative business, and our administrative business, first on the agenda is election of officers. Our rules require that a chairman cannot serve longer than 2 years in succession. And while I can't say or won't admit to being over the hill, it is time for me to step down. I must say I've enjoyed working with you guys, even though you're kind of an unruly bunch at times. But it's been a creative process, which I appreciate. So what I will do is I think that I will ask for any nominations for vice chair. Does anybody have a nomination?
I nominate Diane Butler.
Okay. And Bob, would you be interested as well to be nominated?
Yes. Only because, I've been holding meetings for a while, and I think that that's something that I can do without being chair. Okay,
Right.
So I will accept that nomination.
I guess I'll accept the nomination also.
Okay. I don't know that there's any discussion involved. If anybody wants to make oratorical comments, so may I call for a vote on that? So.
Mr. Chairman,
see
we
how to
don't
do
have a
this.
second for either one.
Oh,
We
thank you.
had 2 nominations, but no second.
Thank you, Ms. Consoli. A second to, well, let's start off with me. A second to my nomination. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Do I hear a second to Ms. Butler's nomination?
I'll second that.
Okay. Now, I thank you, Ms. Consoli. I will now call for a vote. All in favor of Ms. Butler. She comes first in the alphabet. Please raise your hand.
I vote for myself too?
You can vote for yourself.
Okay.
All right.
Did you?
I got
Get the
2
payment?
votes. And
No, I do want to use the money on the app. I'm sorry. I don't know what he was
Miss
saying.
Wood, you're not muted. There you go.
Okay, sorry.
And for Mr. Waldman. All in favor of him as vice chair?
Aye.
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, so that's solved. And now we move to the vote for the next chair. Do I hear a nomination?
I nominate Alex Blind.
Who got here first?
Ooh,
Mr.
two
Bellamy?
nominations. Wow.
I
Doesn't
Ms.
matter.
Butler, will you second that?
I think Ms. Butler went first, but I was
Okay, will you
nominate-
second Ms. Butler's motion?
Yes, I second it.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor of Alex Klein becoming our chair for the next year, please say aye.
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 That's a unanimous vote. Just in concluding, as I metaphorically pass the gavel, which doesn't work here.
Darn, I was hoping we get to pass the gavel. Oh, well.
All right, Mr. Klein, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you all for your vote of confidence. And so this is, for what it's worth, my second time as chair. I was chair several years ago and enjoyed that. Providence Point afterwards being the, I guess I earned my money there. But anyway, so leading on for the rest of the agenda today, we don't have any public hearings, and under new business, we have continuing discussion on comprehensive rezoning by our planning and zoning staff, Mr. Lashinsky and Alexis Robinson and Casey Ortiz. I'm not sure who's going to present, but I guess you guys have a presentation that you're going to
Hey,
give us.
Alex,
Yeah.
quick question. Can we do the annual report approval first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally missed that. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so heading back up, we have our annual report that was well prepared by Ms. Consoli, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to review that. Anybody have any comments on that?
I do. Under number 6, we just need to clarify. It says upon referral by the Director of Planning and Zoning on structures greater than 3,250 square feet in the R2NC zone districts, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing and make recommendations, period. And then the next sentence says, under section 21-40060, the Planning Commission reviews and approves these types of applications. I would propose that we use the same language to be consistent. Use the same language as right below that in number 8. It says for applications under blah, blah, blah. Planning Commission shall grant or deny applications.
Well,
So
can
instead
I
of saying-
ask Ms. Consoli a question on this, since she prepared it? This, if I'm not mistaken, number 6 is just the code copied verbatim. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Same,
So
same from last year and the year before. Nothing
yeah.
has changed
So
this year.
yeah. So I think this is, since that's just verbatim copied from the code, because I think, unless, the duties according to that section are as listed in the code, and I don't think we should make changes to that code. I mean, I
just thought-
appreciate the sentiment, because I know that there are problems with that language.
Right.
But this is just copied from the code, so I think we should just leave that.
And then maybe at some future point, make sure it's consistent, because I think the intent is for that to be inconsistent. I mean, to be consistent, I
Yeah.
don't think that our sole discretion is to approve, basically review it and approve it. I think we do have the option to grant or deny. But I agree to leave it here like this, but then at our next meeting, just
Well,
propose that
we
language
can't
is
change.
consistent.
We can't change the code. That's not our.
No,
that's
we
not-
can propose to who's ever on the call from planning and zoning that maybe they take a look at making that language consistent.
Well, I think there's a move. Well, all of that R2NC that comes from the R2NC code, and all of that needs to be changed, as we've talked about. So anyway, that's a topic for another day.
Okay, the
I-
only other change, I'm
I
sorry, the
agree
only
with
other
Ms.
change,
Butler, and I agree with Mr. Klein.
So the only other change I have is under attendance. It says, oh, well, actually, right before that, under it says second sentence down, in January 2025, Robert Waldman was elected chair of the commission. Diane Butler was elected vice chair. I think that's correct. But then under attendance, it says Tom Stefanutis, vice chair, and on a couple of pages. So might as well just correct that.
Yeah. Thank you for catching that. Have you made those changes, Kim? Or you noted that change?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on that? I'll call for a vote then. All in favor of approving the annual report, raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thanks. All right. Back to the agenda. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. So now we're on to the comprehensive rezoning. Sorry about that. You want to take it away, Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric Lashinsky, Chief of Comprehensive Planning. Good to be with you as always, here with Alexis Robinson and Casey Ortiz, as usual. Good to have a full house tonight. We continue to make progress on our zoning initiative. So this is definitely not the first time we're going to share tonight. We keep evolving the work, and so some of it is going to be review, and then we have some new information as well. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to be tag teaming this presentation, the three of us. But I think feel free to I can't see you now that I'm sharing my screen, but feel free to interrupt me or any of the presenters as we go through. I think that will be fine. It's informal enough. First thing is
before you go, do you see all the people sort of at the top of your Zoom screen, or can you can't see the windows?
I've never figured out how to do that, how to do both.
Okay.
If you guys decide to do a raise hand, I'll just stop Eric or something, or I'll let him know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it works best.
Try to talk.
If one of us wants to just raise hands, and then you can see that, Casey, and jump in.
And I'll do the same when Casey or Alexis takes over. But I'm going to just give the beginning and a recap. We have a new name for this initiative. It's got this flashy name now, Zoning Unlocked, Clear Code for a Thriving Annapolis. We felt that, particularly as we kind of move towards eventually sharing this work with the general public, that we wanted it to have some sort of greater value and try to get as much away from jargon as we can. It was called comprehensive rezoning. This really captures the intent that we're going for, which is to try to create a zoning code, a zoning map in the city that is more intuitive and straightforward, and we think it'll have value to more people if it is that way. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to give a brief recap. Alexis is going to give an update on the open space zoning work. Casey is going to talk about the zoning consolidation and recommendations, and then and we'll finish up with next steps. And if we have time, we have some slides that we've been putting together to kind of help the general public understand zoning, and we could talk about those at the very end if there's time, but it's not critical. Okay. As we've had for many months now, we have a website that captures this initiative, and it keeps getting updated each month with information from meetings, and we keep refining the narrative information here and images. So folks listening at home, please just use this for any information you want about this initiative. But I'll probably say this multiple times. We're at the very beginning of what will be a fairly long process. In our code for the city, the city's code of ordinances, there's a pretty clear process for how we change the zoning map or make zoning text amendments. And ultimately with the map change, this is just one piece of what the city code says about this type of change. But we ultimately will have to notify all property owners. We'll have to do the public outreach. We're at a stage right now where we're trying to get input from the Planning Commission, which is what our city code instructs us to do, and what is pretty conventional process. Ultimately, we have to have the city council involved, and we'll talk about how we're going to do that. This is, again, the 4-phase process that we're working through on our Zoning Unlocked project here. We did complete phase 1, which led to the adoption of the Tyler Avenue Complete Community Overlay District in October, I believe it was, or November. There was another bill that got adopted by the City Council that had text amendments related to plan developments and some other zoning, very specific text amendments. And now we're into phase 2. We're focusing on the open space zoning and the zoning consolidation. And I'm happy to say that we, in regard to phase 3 and phase 4, we recently selected an architecture consultant that's going to help us with the form-based standards for mixed use and hopefully residential eventually. So we're going to bring them on, and they've done a lot of very comparable work in other communities like Annapolis, and that's partly why we were interested in working with them. So I'm excited for that.
Eric, you have a hand.
Okay.
You ready to share who that is, Eric?
Oh, sure. I think they're not under contract yet, but we can say Utile is the company. It's spelled Utile, and they're based out of Boston, so they're not local, but they've done the kind of work we're looking for in a lot of other places, and they're architects and planners, and you can definitely check out their work. Let's see. This is the
Oh, I have 2 of
standard.
these in my ear.
Cheryl, is that you?
Sorry.
Okay. The process that we're moving through on each phase of our process here is basically the same, but this one lays out phase 2. You know, we're in the winter here, and we're moving towards recommendations that we hope City Council will get behind in the spring. But we have a lot of work to do before then. We've finessed this statement. It used to just really be about talking about the consistency only with the comprehensive plan, but ultimately what we're going for here is a zoning code that's more intuitive, it better addresses city goals and needs, and also provides greater consistency with the comprehensive plan's future land use map. That's what we mean by zoning unlocked. And when we think about the comprehensive plan, again, you know, these are the high points here. And I think, you know, we were talking about, you know, the issue of the restaurant being acquired recently. That was something that was in the news today. You know, I think when we look at inclusive economic growth, that really is about having zoning regulations that are easy for anybody who wants to come in and invest in the city to work with. You know, I think there's a history here in Annapolis where if you've done multiple projects here, you kind of have an edge on the next person because we have such a difficult set of development regs to navigate. And some of that is very well-intentioned. I don't mean to say that it's unnecessary, but we think we can improve on it and make it easier for more people to invest in properties here, whether it's homes or businesses or institutions. So I just wanted to highlight among all of these, we typically talk about the housing or the neighborhood preservation or the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit connectivity. I was thinking about this inclusive economic growth today with the news that broke.
Well, fewer things as special exceptions goes a long way to keeping
Right.
things accessible. for
That's
sure.
right. And I think there is a we feel that, if we can minimize, ensure that the level of review and the requirements are practical and pragmatic, and minimize things that might be unnecessary, we can be more productive and lead to, more productive outcomes. So,
And
this-
even requiring things to go through the planning commission, frankly.
right. So, for those who haven't seen this is a slide we've used over and over again since we were working on the comprehensive plan. But, the future land use map is a more general vision of how land should be utilized in the city. It breaks things down basically into just the big categories: residential, open space, institutional, maritime, industrial, and all of the red is mixed use, which consolidates parcels that have historically been either for retail or commercial or office. Today, we want to give those properties more flexibility. And when you look at the zoning map, there's very little that you could see reflecting that future land use map. So we want those two to be more reflective of each other. And I happened to watch a webinar over the holidays, not because I, was looking to kill time doing that, but to maintain my planner's license, I had to do some continuing education. And so I watched a webinar about Charlottesville, Virginia's zoning update and how they were using that to achieve different goals. And I thought it was interesting. They showed this slide, which basically shows how their final zoning map update really ultimately reflects the future land use map that they developed for the comprehensive plan. And I mean, this is essentially what we're going for. We want a zoning map that, has a vision embedded in it, that you can kind of make some sense of it. I mean, you can see the corridors of the city where they have different type. You don't even need to know what the zoning districts are, but you can kind of see a pattern here. And it is worth noting they probably have less than 20 zoning districts, maybe around 15 or so. So that's also what we'd like to get to, a more simplified zoning map. I just want to close out this recap with two new slides that we developed, particularly with the greater public in mind. There's misconceptions about what zoning can and can't do. So what it can do, it can regulate what can be built and how the building can be used, essentially what's inside the building. With each zone, we do give it a purpose. What should buildings or land uses in this zoning district try to achieve? What are the allowed uses within a building or site? And then we develop standards that can try to help shape what happens on a property, what can be built, and sometimes additional standards for very specific places like our Tyler Avenue overlay district, where we had specific relationship between buildings and the street. Did I hear somebody say something? Okay. But I think this is probably even more important to reinforce what zoning cannot do. There is a common misconception that you change the zoning and suddenly a flood of new things will happen. And that's really not the case. We can't determine when new development will happen. We could have the most ambitious and positive-minded zoning update, and it might not lead to anything. There's a lot of other factors that have to align for some sort of redevelopment or new development or renovation to happen. Zoning cannot determine the exact outcomes of the new development, only the limits. So by that, I mean to say we can set density thresholds or the maximum height or bulk of a building, but somebody could come in and do something much less than what those limits allow. And ultimately, what that building is a function of all of these different criteria, factors, inputs, the economic constraints, adjacent relationships to other sites, et cetera. So that's important to acknowledge. Zoning alone cannot ensure the best outcomes of new development. And we say this because there is an important role for staff and the planning commission and the community and elected officials to play in every project to help shape the best outcome. And that's why we have a public process for major site plan projects, plan developments. And finally, zoning has limited ability to ensure affordability. There's certainly ways that we can bake in affordable housing into zoning, such as through our moderately priced dwelling unit provisions or other types of what we call inclusionary zoning, other requirements for in housing developments for there to be below market units available. But ultimately, we can't do that for an entire project or the entirety of a neighborhood or a city. And so, we do have to rely on market forces in a lot of cases. And there are ways of working with those to get certain outcomes, but it's not always possible to predict how affordable a particular project might be.
So
there's
so
probably others.
Yeah, I just want to push back on that a little bit because, zoning, as you pointed out in the last slide, determines what gets built.
Mm-hmm.
And what gets built has an effect on its value. So, if you have zoning that, as an example, allows only, single family houses on 1 acre lots, that's going to come at a certain price versus allowing, a 1,200 square foot house on a small lot. It's going to come at a different price. Now, that's affordability with a lowercase a versus affordability with an uppercase A, which are these more formal programs that you mentioned. But, I really think it's really important not to say, well, we'll just let market forces, market forces have to drive it. Yes, that's true. But different things cost different amounts. And, maybe a 1,200 square foot house in Annapolis is going to be more expensive than in Fayetteville, Arkansas. But it's certainly going to be less than a 5,000 square foot house on an acre lot. So I just want to push back on that because the way you've sort of, and I don't know whether it's what you implied or what I inferred, is that you throw up your hands, we can't do much about it. I just don't really agree with that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. And I candidly, I did labor over including this last bullet point because I agree with you. I definitely don't want to throw up our hands on this topic. There can be a dramatic difference in cost based on density and location, and where something happens, where it doesn't happen. I think what I was trying to, and I probably should have added this, I think what I was trying to say that's missing here is also that typically there are programs that can be coupled with zoning to really optimize the zoning. I think like the Tyler Avenue overlay district is a good example where we set the allowances for that zone in a way that so we can get a variety of different housing options, on this corridor and different densities, that would be in keeping with generally what's there today. But we were talking, as we kind of got closer to final, and we still might need to do something to projects to happen. So, because I do hear what you're saying. We get that common refrain. There's this common, I'd say, argument for ADU justification that they're going to create kind of an affordable housing unit, which may not always be the case, but certainly they have a greater chance of being affordable than a much larger house, which I think is your point. So
Also, that the word affordability is just a loaded word, and I think anytime you start to, and this is sort of a longer reaching comment, but anytime you start to talk about affordable housing, you have to really define what you're talking about. And I've been using this lowercase affordability, which is sort of a relative thing, like this is more affordable than that in a given market, versus uppercase affordability, which are these formal programs like, at one end Section 8, at the other end NPDU, or things based on AMI that are have rules around them for affordability. So that's just a suggestion to deal with that. Whenever you start talking about affordability, have a quick sidebar about what you're talking about, because when you say the word affordability, it means, especially given that it's been thrown around in national politics too, it's like such a loaded term. And if you don't define it, people either stop listening to you or they hear something that you really didn't intend.
Yeah, no, I agree. Those are excellent points, Alex. Thank you.
Alex, I'm glad you mentioned that. Eric, would it help if you rephrase that bullet point and said something like zoning can limit the ability to ensure affordability?
Yeah,
I think
I like that.
Yeah,
it sort of flips it around, which is
Yeah.
very true. Yeah, that's a great comment.
yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. I'm writing down. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm actually handing the slide deck over to Alexis. I'll keep the screen going, I guess, and just Alex, you can tell me when to go, but we're going to talk about space, which I'll just say, we saw this as a kind of very common sense piece of what we're trying to do here, but it does have its own complexity. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Alexis Robinson, Senior Comprehensive Planner, and I'll be going over the open space zoning district recommendations, following up on our conversation from the last meeting. So as we presented before, there is an open space zoning district that already exists in the city code, but has not been utilized on the zoning map. So we are looking to apply that zoning district to existing and future park spaces that are over an acre, existing and future conservation easements that are over 1 or 2 acres, and potentially also Anne Arundel County public school properties that are managed as parks within the city. On the left here, you can see an image from the comprehensive plan of the environmental enhancement areas and environmental recreational enhancement areas. And then on the right is a proposed or an estimate of existing parks and conservation easements that would be included within this zoning district, we went forward with these recommendations. Next slide, please. After our conversation with the commission last month, we took under consideration facilities that are with the schools inside the city. So here are images of the Bates Athletic Complex as well as Germantown Park that would be considered. As you can see, it is a significant amount of space, with the Bates Athletic Complex including the Weems Wayland Fields and Chesapeake Children's Museum space and the Cal Ripken Field that would become a connected system of park spaces. And the Germantown Park facilities next to the school that are very sizable for that area and would be beneficial to be preserved or limited in their development.
Do you need to get the permission of or have you talked to the school system to see what they have to say about that?
Incorporating Anne Arundel County into this process is on our list of to-dos for stakeholders and engagement. So that we would like to at least let them be aware of what we're proposing. Not exactly sure how much that would impact what they have planned for these spaces, seeing as currently those school spaces are intended to stay school facility spaces.
Well,
But
they don't have any say, ultimately. Is that correct?
Well, that's a good question. I think we're going to have to, they do have a say in the process, but whether, I don't know.
It's not decisive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can say whatever we want. Whether they follow it or not is really the story.
Well, it depends on the resolve of the city administration, whether they want to force them to follow our own zoning laws.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the state, for instance, has worked with us, like the Legislative Services Garage. Other times they've totally ignored us, which is the Legislative Services building that they just have finished. Now, it's interesting. There could be another layer of complexity to these two properties, in that there's some who are thinking about involving the county parks department in maintaining these two properties rather than the city parks department. But they would still be owned by the school system.
Mm-hmm.
But they're clearly uninterested in maintaining them or developing them as parks.
Right.
In any case, yeah, that's just off little footnotes to your presentation.
And actually, as we've been talking, it occurred to me, there's a third site that we may want to consider, which is on College Creek at the Adams Elementary. I mean, that's a really sizable, kind of mostly forested peninsula that I don't think will ever be more than, in terms of the built area, more than what it is today. So that might be another one we should consider.
What about Annapolis Middle?
I was going to ask about Annapolis Middle.
We could look at it. I think that one probably has more value. It's actually technically outside the city. That's the other thing.
Oh, okay.
It's that oddity.
Okay. That solves that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
so with the sites that we have looked over, this is a comparison of the current zoning map and then with the Koningsberg zoning map with open space in the open space district. As you can see, it adds another dimension, especially for a lot of sites that are already considered park space, valuable park space within the city.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think it's exciting to think about how these might ultimately get connected, maybe through expanded greenway network. I mean, they're all kind of disconnected sites today.
So you all were forwarded the draft open space district legislation. I hope that you all have had an opportunity to look that over. That legislation would include changes to the zoning code for the open space district that would be language to include the conservation easements into the definition of open space, additional bulk regulations and development restrictions for parcels that fall under the open space, changes to the uses allowed within the open space district, new standards for active recreation uses, since active recreation itself is a use that we are introducing into the zoning code, and it would be allowable as an accessory with standards. So we had to define what those standards are. And then additional term definitions for cemeteries, active and passive recreation, which were not previously defined within the zoning code, but needed definition just for being added to the use table in open space.
So if I could, just with respect to the last slide, another thing that came up that seems to be, that I thought of was, there seems to be something that's neither here nor there, is Waterworks Park. So that's technically city property, but it's not in the city. So it seems to be in this sort of limbo. And so so that I think it should, if you want, include that in this as open space, because that is city-owned property.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's in sort of this weird limbo because of where it is, but certainly that should be.
If it's not city property, then we can't zone it.
But it is city.
Well,
property.
it's city property, but it's
If
in the
it's not in the
county.
city, we can't zone it.
Right, I can actually give you an update. I'm glad you brought it up, because it is an unusual situation. It's not in the city, so we can't determine the zoning for it, but it is city property. Actually, we have been going through a zoning process with the county, as a property owner in the county. They have been going through region by region of the county, and so that's in region 6 of their planning areas. And we actually requested that the areas of Waterworks Park, previously up until now, most of Waterworks Park was zoned as open space. There's a portion where the solar field is, that was zoned for agricultural use. And actually they found there were some areas of that they needed to correct. But that was the basic idea. What we asked them to do was to rezone the areas that are remnant industrial areas. So where we have the former waterworks generating building, the one by the dam there, and just that general area by the dam, and then the upper area where the city's water plant is today. We asked them to zone those two areas as an industrial use, which would actually provide more flexibility for future adaptive reuse of those structures, the ones that are vacant today. And so that's actually the legislation for that was just recently introduced and at the county council, and it'll kind of go through that process. But that has already gone through a community input process with a stakeholder committee, and that zoning change request is actually very consistent with the Defense Highway corridor there, which has a lot of various industrial uses. So there's nothing particularly unusual about that, but it does give the city some more flexibility to actually put those vacant buildings into some sort of productive use that could complement the park space, which I think is exciting. They're just basically decaying right now. Our last mayor had a lot of ideas, and we did actually move through an RFP process, but I think we're kind of reconsidering things on that right now. So, yeah, that's just kind of where that is at, but it's a good point.
And to sort of tie it into where you are now, Alexis, in looking over the draft legislation, something like I'm always a little confused on exactly what's an active use versus a passive use, and I think at broad brush, the definitions are pretty satisfying, but they're in the definitions for active use, it says, and I don't know if you want to wait to get into that, into those details, or.
I think now is okay.
Okay, so in terms of active use, things that need facilities. So certainly, soccer is an active use because you need a field or, that kind of thing. But it seems like, but in terms of passive uses, you have hiking trails. So things like, with respect to Waterworks brought this up, something like, the off-road bike trails. Is that an active use, passive use? Seems to be sort of in sort of halfway between those things, because you do need facilities, but they're not facilities in a sort of a traditional way.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
think-
there are other things that sort of fall in that limbo there.
I think one of the biggest or the bigger distinctions between active and passive use is kind of if there's a structure or built element involved.
Mhm.
I can double check on the definition, but definitely to make sure that that's clear as well.
Well,
Okay.
I don't mean to disagree with Mr. Klein, although that's never stopped me before. But sometimes hikers and bikers don't coexist well on trails. So I think I'd like you to put that into the pot to think about.
Yeah.
Sometimes bikers need their own trails, and sometimes hikers need their own trails. And sometimes they can coexist. Depends on how heavy the uses are. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the big change between these current zoning map and the zoning map with the open space district overlaid? What do you show? What can you point out what's important here?
So currently, a lot of the park spaces are zoned for residential. So as you can see on the current zoning map, Truxton Park is R2 versus in the proposed map, it would be open space. Not that there is any plan for Truxton Park to have homes on it, but this ultimately makes it clear for anyone looking at the zoning map that that is open space that is preserved for recreational use.
Yeah, I think that's important because, if it's on the books as R2 and somebody, somehow manages to have a piece of that and they want to do something with it, it's going to be hard to say no. It seems like the city's sort of, a little bit out on a limb, though. I mean, fortunately, the city owns most of that, but there may be some weird parcels that the city's a bit out on a limb because nobody's actually ever tried it. But I think this is really good to formalize that.
Same.
I think this also clears up any confusion that there may be for the larger conservation easements, especially the ones that you can see are currently zoned as R1A. And those are pretty important spaces that are now in conservation easements, but our zoning map does not reflect that. So putting them into the open space would clearly show that those are preserved for recreation. Yeah, Diane.
Yeah, I can't really tell from the screen, but does this include the proposed conservation easements for Parkside Preserve and Parole Place?
So we included all of the recorded ones in our GIS. Those two are for sure ones we can add.
Okay.
It just isn't recorded on our GIS at the moment. But thanks for
Okay,
letting
thanks.
us know.
I
We
just
can for
wanted-
sure add it in.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they get included because they're pretty important too.
Those are great ones to add. You know, there's Dylan, as you know, he's been trying to update everything, but those are so recent that
Yeah.
we actually had to get the shapefile for the Villages of Providence Point easement is on here, but we had to request that from Scenic Rivers. So we should definitely get the one for Parkside Preserve and definitely get the one for Parole Place because those are substantial. And the next time you see this, we should be able to have those on there. And if you think of any others that are like obvious, just shoot us a line.
And I do want to add a point on top of what Eric said about the conservation easements. We didn't include everything. We didn't include all the conservations in the overlay that you're seeing today. We did all the conservation easements that are over 2 acres. So there's a few that are there's many that are under that threshold, but we decided because they're recorded conservation easements, this was just for a consistency's sake that we didn't include them.
Is it 2 acres or 1 acre, Casey? We want 2 acres?
2 acres. 2
Okay.
acres.
Okay, I gotta adjust that sign. But there's that in the legislation. I think you'll notice there's a clause that I believe that clearly recognizes that every conservation easement comes with other conditions that are going to supersede the zoning here. So particularly for the ones that aren't on, they're not big enough to put on the map. So
in the future, if
all right,
there aren't very many places, but in the future, if there is a place that dedicates more than an acre to open space, how would you add it to the zoning map?
Well, if it's zoned as something else, we have to go through legislation. So if it's just one site and there's not a lot of impact to adjacent properties or not many people involved, and it's much more straightforward. And it can just, I guess it's like spot zoning, but it would be a correction, really. I mean, that's what you would refer to as kind of a map correction, but it would have to be a legislated thing. So,
okay, because the Hillsmere Shopping Center, could be setting aside more than an acre of open space.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see more. I think that there are definitely some opportunities still out there. So we'll be adding to it. Sure.
All right.
Well, so I know you got the draft legislation kind of late. So by all means, we can continue the conversation at the next meeting. That would be fine. All right.
Yeah, you're just looking for comments on that because it's obviously not been introduced, right?
Right. We actually don't. We don't even have hopefully the mayor will sponsor it, but we haven't gotten that yet. So we're just trying to get it together.
Yeah, great. I think that's really good. Thanks for talking about this. It's really good to get this formalized.
Appreciate it.
So picking up with the zoning consolidation, just a few recap slides for those of you. City's got 32 existing zoning districts, 31 that we're using at the moment. Open space exists, but it's not in use at the moment. As you all just heard, it's something we'd like to see more widespread. why we're doing it this way with the zoning consolidation recommendations. It refers to just trying to reduce the number of zoning districts within existing zoning districts that we have on the books. We'd like to merge existing zoning districts into existing zoning districts that can achieve the goals, or that address current goals in regards to minimizing, simplifying zoning. A simplified zoning map will help the city develop in a more simple way, whereas developers have to navigate many different zoning districts. By simplifying, we just kind of streamline the development process a bit.
Yeah, I want to just reinforce that this is also not about giving people a free ride on certain. Obviously, like, it doesn't affect forest conservation rules. It doesn't affect critical area. It doesn't affect stormwater regs, or all the things that I think are important to maintain a certain level of quality, as development happens, our APF requirements and so forth. This is really just about simplifying the overall zoning map and being kind of more practical about how many districts do we actually need to get the development outcomes that we're looking for. I guess that's the best way to put it.
So a lot of what justifies our recommendations is that what we heard during the comprehensive plan process and with the future land use, that we're trying to bring about a lot of consistency within the comprehensive plan and the zoning. We want to reduce the amount of redundant, outdated, and underutilized zoning districts. And a lot of where we're starting comes from community supported changes with these immediate recommendations. So in the immediate zoning consolidation, we originally started with 8 zoning districts, but we've thinned that to 7. We're looking at R1A, R1B, R3R, BR, B3CD, C1A, and C2P. The zoning district that we did remove from the immediate recommendations was the C2A in downtown. That just came about from us doing more research into the zoning district and kind of understanding that a lot of the consolidating C2A into C2 wasn't gonna accomplish the goals that we were looking for in the outline that we initially thought we're not gonna get the goals of what we were looking for, and we decided to remove the C2A
from consideration.
Thank you. If you can keep going. Yeah. So for the immediate zoning recommendations that we have straight off the bat, these came from speaking with, it's not just us in comprehensive planning, but we spoke with historic preservation, we spoke with current planning, and we kind of came to a place where we could agree on R1A and R1B changing over to R1, R3R changing over to R3, B3CD and BR changing over to MX. And when we go into a future planning commission workshop, one of the things we really wanted to focus on was height districts within the MX zoning district. So currently in the last presentation we showed, the MX zoning district is split into 3 different height districts, and that's currently divided based off of parcel lines. And where the B3CD is currently, you have large, long lots along West Street, where the Toyota dealership is, and a lot of the businesses right there. They're pretty deep lots. We didn't think that putting one height district across one parcel was conducive to kind of getting the same results. Whether you didn't want to hypothetically put 60-foot heights right next to West Street, and then on Smithville have 30-foot heights. And we're basically, what we'd like to discuss with you guys later is how could we accomplish mixing up the height districts along the former B3CD so that it's more in line with the MX.
Yeah, so
Well,
just if I could, the number of, it seems to me the number of zoning districts we have is driven by having to have, somebody says, well, I don't want this certain thing along in this certain area because it's incompatible. So rather than have something like, and I don't know what the mechanisms are, there's probably a number of them, to say like an overlay district or something like that says, okay, in this particular area, you can have all the same uses that you can have in the other areas, but you just can't have it be as tall, for example. And I think in the past, what they've done is just created a new zone, and that's how we've ended up with all these zones. So I think, one just really general comment that I have in all of this is that the uses, we've got to really get away from such fine-grained use enumeration, I guess is maybe the best word, that we just, uses can be very general, and then we're not going to end up with some of this problem. But so I think MX, many places could just be MX. They just maybe need to have these other things that say govern the height, for example. However you do that,
Yeah, that's a great. There's a lot of support in our department for improving the use tables, and I think that's actually going to be a separate thing that's going to dovetail with what we're doing here. Chris, Director Jakubiak, is very focused on that as well. It's definitely caused a lot of confusion. I actually noticed on this slide there's a mistake where for the R1B, we actually determined that at least one of the parcels that is R1B today is probably a better candidate for R2. And that's, I think, the Parkside Preserve. We have a slide that'll show why that is, but so that should be R1B becomes either R1 or R2.
What effect will form-based code have on this? Will form-based design guidelines and so forth solve Alex's comment about different heights in the same MX zones across the city?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the vehicles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think we may have given you this teaser before, but we're leaning towards when we get into the mixed use, trying to consolidate the B zones and the P, which stands for professional office. The B is for business or commercial uses. We're looking at creating like two mixed use districts, one that would be for kind of more of a neighborhood scale and one that would be more for a transit corridor type scale. So those would have form-based standards that, kind of, I guess it would definitely get at what you're talking about.
And that can be pretty fine-grained, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And all
you
that
could really
that shows up in a regulating plan is where that ends up.
Yeah, a lot of places actually use the street network to define those. It's like based on what street your property fronts, that determines the guidelines. So they kind of marry the streetscape character that you want with the building character that makes sense there. Sorry, I'll hand it back to you, Casey.
You're good. So just continuing on R1A, some of the reasons why we wanted to consolidate R1A was to preserve the existing neighborhood. We wanted to steward environmental assets and just overall consistency with the comp plan. That was a lot of the justification as to why we wanted to go with R1A into R1. We'll get later in a future slide, we'll get into some of the use differences and bulk differences. But if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
And then very similar with R1B, kind of the same reasons as to we're trying to accomplish a lot of the same goals as to why we're consolidating R1B into either R1 or R2 based off of the development pattern. We're really just trying to, it's really consistency's sake at that point. But if you can go to the next slide. So this is some of the existing lot pattern that, at least in these two, Hunt Meadow and Wardour, which are both zoned R1A, we did some analysis into the development pattern within these neighborhoods. So Wardour has about 1.7 units per acre, and the average lot size is about 29,000 square feet. In Hunt Meadow, you've got about 3.1 units per acre and about 14,000 square feet for lot size. That's within the R1 zoning district. R1A is actually the lowest density within the city zoning district, and that these two changing from R1A to R1 really wouldn't change what is ostensibly allowed there at the moment. And in Hunt Meadows' case, they have a HOA in that area, which I believe does supersede the city zoning code at that point.
Yeah.
So you take Hunt Meadow and make it R1, or
Yeah, and that is, I think the thing about Wardour that has to be said also is that a lot of the bigger sites are hampered or constrained by critical area, so that there's very the areas that those can develop are limited. Now, you know, when you see an average lot size of 29,000 square feet, I mean, that's well over what the R1 minimum lot size is, but the likelihood, you know, that the doesn't really limit what can happen. You know, likelihood that something needs to have some greater density in these places is unlikely. So that's the other argument here. As Casey mentioned,
none of these changes make anything non-conforming. If anything, it just goes the other way.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
You've got a hand, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, just a quick question here, or statement, I guess, is in the future, can we, this might just be a little statistical quirk of mine, but can we get the median instead of the mean for average? Only the reason why I say this is because, as we're pointing out for Wardour, we have critical areas that kind of delineate some of these areas a little differently that are over-representing the average mean size.
We can add that in.
I see what you mean about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right,
And kind of very similar. So these are two R1B zoned neighborhoods. On the left side, we've got Parkside Preserve. You've got about 2.5 units per acre with an average lot size of 3,500 square feet. And then with Kingsport, you've got about 5.4 units per acre with an average lot size of 8,100 square feet. There's more land. I want to preface with both of these that there's more land within these communities, whether it's the community center or the pools and stuff. We decided to exclude that for our calculations, and that's how we settled on some of these numbers. But that the development pattern of the two of these neighborhoods fits more within the R2 zoning district, and that's why we thought it would be more suitable for it to go into R2 from R1B.
yeah, these look more like R2 to me, just from the pattern.
You can keep going for me.
Yeah.
And so next we've got R3R. One of the reasons why we decided to consolidate this one really came down to wanting to standardize the zoning right next to West Street and Spa Road. This one's a little bit out of date. It says we were going to consolidate it consolidate it from R3R into MX, but we're actually changing it from R3R into just straight up R3, as that would be our recommendation.
That's right.
One of the reasons why we decided to go with R3, originally we had thought of changing it from R3R into MX because this area is right next to West Street. It's right next to where the MX zone already is. After speaking with current planning and discussing the development pattern right here, we thought it would be more. Most of this area, first of all, is already is developed for the most part. After speaking with current planning, we thought it was better just to have the neighborhood lose the R and just go to a standard R3 zoning. And that, based off of speaking with current planning, that's kind of how we settled on that recommendation.
And it would essentially, so we're right next to Westgate Circle here. You probably recognize this location. We'll put the aerial imagery on the map for the next one, but basically it'd be an extension of the R3 is right adjacent to this parcel, so it'd be an extension of that. And the depth of the parcel is fairly shallow, so we wouldn't. It's kind of hard to imagine the sort of dynamic mixed-use development coming into this situation. Because of its dimensions are kind of awkward, so it's more likely that it would be a residential redevelopment, if anything. But yeah, Casey's really have to correct this slide here. It's R3R to R.
You've got another hand.
Yeah, sorry, it's me again. Going back to that last one real quick. I kind of like the original thought of that becoming MX. I guess if a business, again, these are, I don't live too far from here, so I walk by here all the time. It is residential now, but everything around it is kind of being commercialized a little bit, right? And just because you make something MX, as we've talked before, just because you change the zone doesn't mean that it automatically changes overnight or anything, right? I kind of like the flexibility of just allowing that if somebody wanted to make this into a unique commercial or mixed area, that we just allow them that flexibility, right? So and again, you've had longer conversations on this and what you have. I just see the potential there because there's so much space as you make your way right past that area and make your way a little bit further down Spa Road, where I could see, different varieties of development occurring in those unique possible areas. So I would just say keep the ideas open there. If it's R3, that's fine. If it's MX, it's fine. I just don't like necessarily saying absolutely no circumstance should we allow somebody to come in and make a mixed use of that space.
Just and as a follow-up to that, the MX zones don't require that you have commercial or retail on the first floor, do they? No. You could still have residential on the first floor.
Yeah.
Well, there's sort of a loophole.
Well, because that's where I think this would be problematic with MX, is if you basically wouldn't allow the residential on the first floor. I think Quentin's right on the money here, I think. But if you changed it to MX and then all of a sudden made the first floor residential non-conforming, that's a problem.
Yeah. Currently, with MX, you do have to have the ground floor retail, but I think there's a clause in the MX that says it's kind of, I've never been a big fan of this clause, but it basically says if you haven't leased that space in within this first 6 months of your occupancy permit, that you can make it residential. And I think that's
It's the loophole.
And it's silly because if somebody's going to do something new, the city's going to force them to build the first floor as if it's going to be commercial, and then when they can't rent it, then all of a sudden you've got this site that's ill suited to be a residence. So I'm in a way I'm sort of a little unsatisfied either way. Somehow you got to have the flexibility, because I think it could work. It could work as a mixed use if somebody wanted to put in, some sort of business on the first floor, or it could be residential. Either way, they both work.
Doesn't this, the way it is now, sort of conflict with the whole idea of form-based codes, in which we're looking?
This scenario with the parking lot is not something that will be in our form-based standards.
Right, and forcing people to put commercial on the first floor also doesn't comport with our ideas of what form-based zoning code is about. So I didn't know that. I thought that MX allowed you the options. The freedom to do either way.
Well, that's maybe something. It's a discussion for.
That needs
it's
to
a
be
discussion
changed.
for our MX zone.
We either are or are going to allow. You'd follow me, or we're not going to allow. But we can't fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
I want to add a little bit of context as to what. So 2 things. One, I think from this discussion, it's not super binary. We don't have to do the whole part. We don't have to do the entire zone as just R3. We could do it split at where some of it is rezoned R3 and some of it is rezoned as MX. When we spoke with current planning, one of the reasons why they suggested us to move away from MX and go towards R3 had to do with the development along Caraway Lane, and that because R3R has a site development review baked into the development standards, that the development that occurred there on Caraway was really only possible because of the site development review process there, and that the developments shown right here in the image right in front of you, that's closer as you get to Westgate Circle, whereas when you get to that development along Caraway, there's a lot more density and you're closer to the middle school. So one of the things we can take away from this conversation is, well, maybe we can split up the zone and potentially have part of it as you get closer to Westgate, as what you can see in the image in front of you, maybe that could be MX. And as you get to the Caraway Lane development, maybe all of that remains R3. Just a suggestion, but that's kind of what our thinking was and why we came to this conclusion.
Yeah, and the thing that I would probably press, and I think that it sounds like Mr. Waldman, Mr. Pline, and I are probably in agreement on, is that we like the idea of flexibility and having a flexible design and use case in that scenario. The only thing that I think that I would split a hair with Mr. Pline is that when we talk about non-conforming, I think that it's completely okay to have compliant non-conforming structures where it makes sense. And what I mean is where something is currently, but you're driving towards the comprehensive plan, and so you make a zone or you make a change, and so the structures that are there are compliant because they were built compliantly to the zone that was there at the time of construction. And then with those future changes, it's just that if it comes to the time to redevelop that area, if it comes time to change things over at some point in the future, compliant non-conforming is a great way to be able to move towards a future path.
Yeah, definitely. It's just in this case with the MX that requires you to have that first floor. Somebody's going to redevelop that. It's just the sort of perverse consequences.
Only if they redevelop it. I mean, I just want to make sure that people understand that in no way would it create a situation where we tell the people who currently live there.
Yeah,
that
right.
anymore.
Yeah, I don't
That's
have
not
a
how it
problem with
works.
non-conforming things. It's just that what the sort of perverse incentives for future development are. That's all.
Yeah. But flexibility, agreed.
I'll jump in just quickly here because everybody seems to be alluding to the same hope and need for flexibility, and I don't think that MX or R3 affords it for a particular site like this. And I think we probably have this elsewhere. Alex, you started to touch on it, like maybe we should be exploring the loopholes or closing them or changing MX in a way that allows for more flexibility in that regard. Because for Casey to really split hairs and look at that one property and say, let's do R3 here and MX here, like that's not going to work either. I know that particular property pretty well. I drive past it all the time, and it's kind of like a no man's land. And I think that that's a perfect, like a perfect use case for the need to address the loopholes or the lack of flexibility in the MX.
I agree.
Mhm.
And I want to add one more thing before we move on, is that as we've done this zoning consolidation, it all started with wanting to eliminate a few zones that we thought were going to be super easy. And then we learned about the open space zoning district. And then we decided to add more zones into the zoning consolidation. We pulled out some, we added some more in, we pulled some out, and we've landed on this. And something that's come up very recently in the past month or two is, well, just because you're consolidating them doesn't mean you're going to make it perfect. A part of it is going to be, well, we've got to do some text amendments. And that's really what we're getting into like next month is as we've been meeting with Lisa Minker in our department and current planning and historic preservation, we've been asking them for their opinions on how can we fix the code. I think everyone can agree that there's problems in spots, and obviously in the discussion we're all having right now, there's clearly issues with MX, and MX isn't going to be a silver bullet for everything, but I think maybe this is something that can be brought up as a part of the discussion where we can recommend some kind of updates to chapter 21. We can add some kind of alterations to the development standards or the use tables or the bulk regulations as a part of this.
Well, yeah, I think one of the big takeaways for me is from this conversation is the MX as written is not perfect. We can definitely make some tweaks to the text for the MX, and then it's a good case study, I think, as we get into those form-based standards for MX, that this might be a great case study for, if this site were ever redeveloped as MX, how could you get the best out of it? What does it need to, what do the standards need to say to give that flexibility and still get kind of a good street presence? So thank you, everybody.
All right. Next.
So you can go to the next slide. So another one, B3CD, we're talking about consolidating into MX. There's a better map later in the presentation that kind of shows a little bit better with the lot lines, but this is where the Toyota dealership is. If you could actually go to the next slide, because it helps understand a little bit more, where we're talking about consolidating B3CD and BR into MX. The cells highlighted in red are the uses that don't match from B3CD to BR, or that they match, or they match, but there's overlap in what we like to see. One of those things that exists within B3CD that changing into MX really changes is, and that we kind of like, is that you remove, by switching B3CD to MX, you remove motor vehicle sales, motor vehicle storage, repair and service facilities, and service stations, and fuel sales. So that Toyota dealership would become non-conforming in that area. After speaking with current planning, we learned that the Toyota dealership might have like a 50-year long lease. So, if it gets rezoned and it all lines up perfectly, maybe they leave earlier than that 50-year lease. But that, at least the Toyota dealership aside, there's other parcels in that area that we remove that use as something that's there, and you introduce a lot more multifamily uses, dwellings above non-residential uses. You just add a lot more of what we'd like to see along the West Street corridor be introduced, where currently it's just a bunch of paved asphalt. And same with BR, you're introducing a lot more housing options and flexibility with development over there in the area near the Stanton Center. A lot of what we heard, there was legislation that was introduced last year to raise the height limits in the BR, and that even that wasn't enough to make the redevelopment super economically viable. I believe you all heard that legislation, and when they heard what we were doing about potentially changing BR to MX, they were for it. So it's one of those things where, again, MX isn't going to be a perfect option. We'll have to do some kind of tweaking to it, but that by changing the uses, we remove a lot of uses along these corridors that we wouldn't want to see, but we introduce a lot more housing options that currently are not allowed at all.
Well, the Toyota dealership is a long-term play, but you got to start now.
Yeah, we don't know when their lease started either. I mean, somebody mentioned they had a 50-year lease, but we don't know at what time that started. So, but yeah, I think there's pretty general broad consensus in our department that, you know, we should be starting to phase out the automotive uses from this West Street corridor, and the businesses that are there today can be legally non-conforming and they can continue to exist. And then, you know, even if they change hands, they could continue, but it's only if they're vacated for a year, more than a year, that they lose that use. So,
Casey, is the Hyundai dealership included in that map?
Yeah. Can you go to the next one? Can you go two more?
oh, yes.
This one's got parcel lines on it. So I'm gonna.
So in the upper left is
This
what
one's
used to be
Toyota.
Luskins and is now the dialysis center in the upper left.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right,
that's Luskins.
And then down below that is
Ceremony Coffee.
Post Haste and Ceremony. Okay. Okay.
Toyota.
Gotcha.
I figured
Toyotas, a Hyundai, and a Genesis, and then you've got the little
Office
office space
building.
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
All right. Good.
And so,
So go ahead, Keith.
I was just gonna say, you know, a lot of what on the subject of B3CD, a lot of what we want to accomplish in a future workshop that we'd like to kind of pin you guys down on a date today for when we can meet. Like I mentioned previously, you know, the height districts within the MX zoning district is parcel based by rezoning the B3CD as MX. It's not going to be universal where we'd like for one of these parcels for the entire thing to be 30 foot or 60 foot. We're probably going to be breaking with tradition and asking for a lot of your recommendations on and input on what kind of height should we be looking at? What kind of standards could we be adding in? What could we be doing to a lot of the zoning consolidation where we can add a lot of your guys' input into a lot of our recommendations for the consolidation. And I think we really want to kind of pin down some kind of in-person meeting with you all.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and once again, I ask, what relationship will form-based building code have on that discussion?
So-
I would suspect it has a lot.
So, yeah, substantial. I think you beg the question that, you know, we are bringing on this outside consultant that would help us somewhat, but I think there's a way to do. It's not really in their scope to do this workshop. I think it might still be beneficial for us to do this workshop, and Casey, Alexis, I can come up with some strategies to help visualize what different scale development, how that would be rendered, you know, on the site like this. And just to kind of get the discussion going, I kind of feel like we can have some productive
there.
discussion.
I'll be
here
there.
without-
Yeah, we could have a really good session with, you know, some pads of paper and drawing and a whiteboard, and because this is especially talking about this particular set of parcels, you know, you could, you know, if you're just imagining things, A lot of really interesting things that could be done there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
All right, good.
So, so I don't, you know, Casey mentioned we want to pin down a date. I think we can maybe do that in a second. We're basically at the end here.
And just a little bit more context on kind of what we're moving on to next. So later this month, we're going to be meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission. We're just going to be letting them know about what we're doing and getting a little bit of their input on what's going on with the C1A and C2P zoning district in regards to what we're doing with the consolidation. Another work session with you guys. We're going to be meeting with City Council next month for the work session. And from that point, we'd like to do another meeting with a joint meeting with Planning Commission and Historic Preservation, just to discuss a lot of what we'd like to see with the C zoning districts in downtown Annapolis that we're discussing in consolidation. And from once the City Council work session happens, that's when we're pretty much going to start going to the public with a lot of the recommendations and your guys' input on going to the general public and informing people about, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's being changed with the zoning and just going to the public in general.
I want to.
Who's that? Who is talking?
That's me. I just want to say something quickly about the thought behind the potential joint work session between Planning Commission and Historic Preservation Commission in late February. The idea behind that is that there's an incredible opportunity with the downtown zoning districts that we're showing here, particularly the C1, which is the light purple. That's a residential zoning district that was carved out of the overall residential area in the early 90s. Alexis did some research to kind of understand where that came from. And it really came out of the Ward 1 sector study in the early 90s and basically was trying to move away from apartment dwellings and office spaces that the Historic Preservation Committee felt were detracting from the value of the historic district. But a lot of the conditions that led to that zoning change then do not exist today. And in fact, if you look at the C1A allowances, they kind of work against the buildings that are there today, particularly the ones that my cursor is by the Naval Academy at the end of Maryland Avenue. You have these incredibly large, high-density buildings that don't allow for multifamily use. That's just one example. I think there's others. So we had a really productive discussion with our colleagues in the planning department, current planning and historic preservation. It seems like there's a lot of people can see the value in particularly merging the C1A with the C1, which is basically the majority of the residential zone in the downtown area, which is much more allowing of other types of housing options. So we know that the Planning Commission will bring a particular perspective to this that will be not as constrained maybe as the HPC. So I think that's the value here.
You talking about a late January work session with us?
Yeah, that would be the goal. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not back into the country until after the 27th. Now, maybe we could do a work session someplace else in the first week of February. I mean, that's up to you guys, but clearly, if you want to talk about Koons Toyota, I'd really like to be there. It's my backyard.
Yeah. No, I think that's important.
How about the 28th?
Okay. Robert jet-lagged Waldman.
I
Well,
would say that my availability.
Right. If that's the date, that's the date. I'll live with it.
being the 29th could also work.
Whatever the Thursday is.
Yeah, that's the 29th.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's up to the rest of you, but I would really like to be there.
I won't be there. Anyway, it's going to be hard to herd the kittens for scheduling, but let's maybe not take up the time here to do that.
Yeah, we'll look at some other dates and we'll share a few options, and then
We'll reach out to you guys with some dates, and you guys will just let us know.
Okay.
This is just a rehash of the slide you saw earlier, just reminding how this kind of process is moving forward. And that's it. We've had the questions along the way. You know, if you have interest, I mean, we have some other slides. We can do them next time if you want, but we have about 6 slides that we've kind of prepared that are more for the general public to give them some context, but that's up to you guys, I think.
I think I've asked my questions anyway. This has been good presentation. I really looking forward to seeing all this unfold.
Same and agreed.
I have no further questions, but thanks for the great presentation.
All right. We're getting granular.
Okay. That's good to hear. Thank you.
I think the next time you guys hear from us, you'll be getting a lot more code change. It'll look a lot more like the open space where you'll get a lot more code changes.
You might start preparing a text amendment to MX. Start thinking about it. What you come up with, okay? Yeah.
We can definitely do that.
Great. All right.
Okay. Well,
thank you for that presentation.
Yeah.
It was great. Thank you.
All righty. So that gets us to the end of the agenda, more or less. Any substantive items? Is there anything else for the good of the order that anybody has?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, looking at the agenda, E3 was not discussed. Eastern Avenue, did I miss something there?
Right.
It's
We do need to vote. You all need to vote on that opinion. If you did already, I didn't hear it.
No,
I don't remember it.
No, we didn't.
so interesting. The agenda that was published on the Annapolis City website that I downloaded today does not have that on it. That's why I skipped it.
Well, I don't think it needs to be. There needs to be public notice of our voting on a decision, whether to ratify the decision in order as written. I don't think that needs to be publicly noticed.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to review it?
I have.
Mm-hmm.
Nope,
And-
and I'm not voting on it because I wasn't part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not voting either.
I have a couple of comments that might help us get through it. The Commissioner Cummings' comments, and hopefully you all have seen his comments in the document.
I have not.
So
There are 2 documents in the Google Drive. One only has Commissioner or Chairman Pline's comment, and then the other one, the second one, does have Commissioner Cummings' 3 comments, which I can read if people haven't heard. It's not really that complicated. I can read it out, and you all could still vote if that works.
Yes, I didn't see those comments. Can you,
Okay.
can you read it, please?
I'm happy to, if you don't mind, Commissioner Cummings, I will be happy to.
Yeah, please go right ahead.
And just kind of what I think is.
I'm just a little.
Oh, okay.
These comments are all pretty late, but
Yes.
if nobody else has a problem with it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into this thing of like starting to talk about every sentence that has a comment on it. I think it's a little late to do that.
No, I don't think it's that. I think I think we can easily go through if Chairman, if you don't mind, if I just say what the comment is and then tell you a proposed solution.
Okay, but if it starts going south, I'm just going to table. Okay,
I do
so
understand.
we'll try it, but
Okay, yeah, we want to, this would be timely. I mean, it's probably not timely anymore to get out of the door, but okay. So the first comment by uh, Commissioner Cummings was about it saying that the fact on page 1, the fact that it is a short-term rental and the owner does not live there. And he was saying that, saying fact, since the owner claimed he does live there at least part of the time and plans to remain living there for at least half of the year. So my suggestion is that we could replace the word fact by, because this sentence is about the concerns by the neighbors. So it says their concerns primarily focused on the size of the subject property. And then we could say their assumption that it is a short-term rental. We could replace fact with assumption by the neighbors. Because this sentence is about the neighbors' concerns. And I think there was testimony about him having a short-term rental license and needing to renew it.
Yeah, so I wasn't sorry. For clarity and apologies because I didn't find this in the findings and opinions. I looked only in the dated folder, so that's why my comments were late. But yeah, it was really just around them saying kind of indicating the fact that the owner doesn't live there, and I'm like, he said that he did at least half the year. So
sort of, but I, well, yeah. So I would just say, that the neighbor's conclusion or assumption that it's a short-term rental. We could replace fact with assumption or conclusion. Just add the word the neighbor's conclusion or the neighbor's assumption that it's a short-term rental. I think we would be fine.
And you can also say that they testified that the owner does not live there, a contention which the owner denied.
He sort of denied it. I didn't think he really did. But
I didn't think he denied it either. I think he's going to turn it into apartments.
Yeah, he said he'll live there when he has to. Obviously, when the ADU, wasn't this AD, he said he'll live there then because he has to. But he kind of said, maybe I'm there sometimes. I mean, he had a short-term rental and they needed to renew the license. I thought there was some testimony about that. But I was just trying to make this, the sentence starts with their concerns primarily focused on, their meaning, we could say the neighbor's concerns, primarily focused on the size of the subject property.
And their perception that the owner does not live there.
Correct.
Or I said short-term rental. I mean, we want to take out.
I'm sorry.
This sentence was about the fact that it is a short-term rental. The problem was the word fact. And I do agree with that, it shouldn't say fact because he did say he comes there sometimes. So we could say their assumption that it is a short-term rental, or their conclusion that it's a short-term rental. This sentence is about what they're saying, what the concerns were. It's not about the owner's testimony on that. So whatever you all want to do, we can change it.
Yeah, anything that was mentioned, I think Bob said it, you said it, we all said it accurately. Just it's the idea that he said he at least sometimes lives there.
Yeah. So we'll change fact to like assumption or the neighbor's assumption or the neighbor's conclusion that it's a short-term rental. That's one of their concerns. Okay. Do you want me to I'll go through just 3 comments. I'll go through. And then Commissioner Cummings had a comment about that former Alderman Ross Arnett says there is a definition of neighborhood. I think with that sentence, there's a sentence saying during deliberations, there was extensive discussion of what constitutes a neighborhood, comma, as that term is used, but not defined by the code. We can take out everything after the comma. So it can say during deliberations, there was extensive discussions of what constitutes a neighborhood, period. I think if you take out the rest, now I do want to just say for the record, I did find the definition of neighborhood that I found in the code is at 17.44.110, number 6. That's, of course, under the chapter or the rental unit licenses chapter. And the definition, so this is it says it's only applicable to 1704 and 1740, but it says neighborhood for the purposes of this chapter, an area within one block or a group of residences residences within 500 feet of each other, whichever is less. But that's only for,
That section.
yeah, 1704 or 1740. And so that particular section is for short-term rentals is right before that. So that's what that's applicable to. I just wanted to note for the record. But I think if we remove everything after the comma,
Yep.
we'll be fine.
I'm good with
And
that.
okay. And then finally, adding a clarifying statement that the waterfront houses in question are less than 10 meters.
No, I put 100 meters. The idea was
100,
that just that
sorry.
we said that,
Yeah.
what didn't, and I was like, listen, they're so close. They're literally less than 100 meters and
It
they're
is.
within the exact same zone.
I thought they were in a different zone though. I thought it was.
No, it's the
Okay.
same
All
one.
right.
that
I thought I heard something about.
people said that it was, but when we
Well,
looked, they're within the same zone.
Well, so we could just say, I would suggest, and you all can decide on this one that, what does it say? The chair advised neighbors that they consider the waterfront to be separate from the models. The code does not make that distinction. Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Cummings, you can tell what you want added.
Sure. I would just say it should be noted that the homes in question all reside in the same exact zone or in the same zone.
I don't know if that was in the record though.
We talked about it because
Oh, it is.
we did. I pulled it
Okay,
up on the
good,
map and
good.
showed.
I heard it differently. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, we literally put on the screen and showed where the houses were, and the waterfront homes are in the exact same zone.
Got it. Okay. So those are the three comments and,
That's it.
Okay.
Chairman Klein, I think those are easy for you
Yeah,
all.
let's call for a vote. So
I move to approve the decision in order with the amendments as suggested by Ms. Wood.
okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. And
All right, thank you.
while I have the floor for a minute, I just want to apologize for earlier. I was coming, I was in the car from urgent care and everybody's fine, but I didn't realize that when you touch your, what is it called? Air pod? Air. In your ears. What is it?
AirPods, yeah.
AirPods. You touch it, it unmutes you. I didn't realize that. So now I'm at home. You can see I'm sitting here. But at that time, I kept touching. And so I apologize. As someone who appears before judges regularly in virtual court, I was mortified. So I just really got off and I came back on when I could do it properly. So my apologies for that.
All right, thank you. No problem. It happens to all of us.
Commissioner Waldman, that's terrible. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's now at the end of the agenda. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?